This is sort of a continuation of last week because this whole April, it seemed like a beautiful time to go into the parable of gardening and having your own garden, which is your own consciousness. You are the center, you are the house within your consciousness. And you get to plant things and dig things up. And don't make yourself wrong because something's growing in your life that you didn't want. Most likely you didn't plant it. We are all the subject to what other people have been planting in our consciousness for a very long time. For instance, I did not plant the seed that I'm as good as the husband I marry. But it was planted there. And it grew up, and I didn't know I could pull it out until, about the fourth husband. People ask me why I keep talking about that. It's because, how many of you have ever done things you wish you hadn't? So, see, I'm just saying it happens. But you learn from it, you grow from it, and you get better from it. And I'm 23 years into a very good marriage, so woohoo, finally learned, yahoo! And since I'm only 43, you can see how many I had before I was 20. Anyway, last week we talked about our life as a garden, which is a metaphor. Why a metaphor? Because, we have a lot to us. There's a lot to who we are. And we are that which can be conscious of all that we are. We're not our thoughts, we're conscious of our thoughts. We're not our feelings, we're conscious of our feelings. We're not what we picture in our mind and what we visualize and what our experience is. We are that which can observe our pictures and our feelings and our experiences. We are that which is consciousness itself. And yet, on the human level, we seem to operate in two ways. We think about things verbally. We have arguments. We have discussions. How many of you have had discussions in your mind? How many of you have discussions while I'm talking? Exactly. Rude. We have discussions in our head, and then we can go on. How many of you have ever got into a discussion and you find yourself arguing and it goes on and on and on and on and gets nowhere? Okay, then we have another part of our mind that is nonverbal, still intelligent, just as intelligent, but it doesn't think in thinking or in verbalization. So you don't call it thinking, but it's still thinking. But it thinks in pictures and symbols and patterns and connections. Yeah. Well, just wait. So therefore, when I talk about, last week we talked about seeing your garden and what do you want to have grow, and what do you want to have cleared out so you can plant something else. How do you want your relationship garden to grow, and how do you want your financial garden to grow, and how do you want your community to grow? All of those things I spoke about in pictures because that gives your mind an opportunity to start to reconstruct your experience non-verbally. It's almost like when you think in pictures, it kind of goes underneath the mental argument and starts to produce results. Thus, Jesus and Buddha both spoke their highest truths in parables because it's hard to explain the unexplainable. And yet, that part of our mind that thinks in symbols and pictures and patterning can understand things that don't have to be described, that would be hard to describe. Thus, parables. I want to expand the idea of the metaphor just a bit. Something that I shared on Facebook. I shared it on my Facebook page and also the member Facebook page. By the way, if you're a member and not part of our Facebook page, that's where I put my wooiest woo-woo-woo stuff. Because on my personal page, I only go so far into the woo-woo because I don't want to totally blow people's minds that, either ride with me or my family. But I do on our member Facebook page. So, one of the things I put down there is that we should consider all of creation as a large garden. It is the Garden of Eden. Unfortunately, it hasn't been tended for a while. And sometimes it's not only not been tended, it's actually been destroyed a bit. But to start looking at that garden can also be renewed and refreshed and revitalized. To start thinking that way makes us more optimistic and also gives us something to do, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But before I do that, I want to give you an idea of how we will do that. I want to give you an experience of working with your non-verbal self. Yourself. It's still yourself, but it's not verbal. It doesn't mean that it didn't learn to talk. It just doesn't need to talk because it's another part of you just talking all the time anyway. Yeah. Got it? So we're going to do, this would be a very country and western, not a polka. We're going to do the metaphoric two-step. Yeah, two-step. We're going to do a metaphoric two-step. I don't know how to do a two-step. I don't know how to dance, actually. I just wiggle a lot and call it good. Anyway, Ernest Holmes said that if you take a thing and turn it into a thought, you can change the thought and you'll change the thing. That's a two-step process. Change, change. It can also go the other way. If you have a thought and change it into a thing, you can change the thing and it will change the thought. Now, we all have thoughts that keep us from blooming, growing, expressing in some area of our life. How many of you have an area of your life that try to be nice? Needs some tending, or needs to be. Let's just say it might bug you. Perhaps it hampers you. An area of your life where you feel blocked. An area of your life that seems barren. How many of you have one of those? Thank you. Great. Now, I'm now a master mind gardener, and I'm going to help you with that. So, what we're going to do is play around with the nonverbal part of ourselves. So check inside and ask if you'd really like to have things changed. Because some of us don't want to change things. And if you find out that in that area, you don't want to change anything, go to another area. Because there's always something we can refresh. You know, like, we could really like our yard and still decide that we want to now take up these bushes and plant strawberries. Make sense? It doesn't make the bushes bad. We just would rather have strawberries now. So is there an area that your mind is willing to have shift and your heart would be in agreement? Now just check that out. Everybody ready? Now check and see if your heart of hearts, your soul, your mind and your soul, your heart and mind say yes. And if so, raise one hand. I love it. I like this one. Maybe. I don't know what's it going to take. It's okay. And it's okay not to want to change right now. You can just sit in the room and feel what it feels like to have other people change. It might be, I'm just throwing some stuff out here. It might be that you have a physical condition. It's not bad, but you wish it was not that way. You might have an experience with other people where there's a misunderstanding all the time. It could be that you're not making the financial income that you would like to make. It could be that you make the financial income you like to make, but you're working too hard. How many of you can agree with it, at least kind of sort of get what I'm saying? Great. It's not horrible, but it's not heaven. Okay, so I invite you, if you choose, to do the metaphorical two-step by simply closing your eyes, if that's comfortable for you, because you want to create a blank screen so that your mind can start to project pictures on it. So you're not closing your eyes because that's some sort of sacred thing. It's just easier to imagine if you're not being distracted by this beautiful background and my lovely outfit. Thank you for laughing. It was supposed to be a joke. Okay, so we close our eyes. Now, what is the thing? What is the thing that seems to bug you? What is the thing that seems to bug you? I'll tell you what mine was. Mine was that it was almost a miracle that I wasn't losing weight, because I counted every calorie, I counted my steps, I counted the exercise I got, and even the doctor said, "This is weird, you should be losing weight." And it was a miracle I didn't. And so I thought, well, if it's a miracle that I'm not losing weight, there's something that's keeping me. And I had that thought, I can't lose weight, and I let it be a picture. So when I want you to take the thing that's bugging you, and I want you to allow that part of your mind that speaks and communicates in pictures, symbols, and patterns to create a picture, a symbol, or a pattern for you. Create that pattern, create that symbol, create that awareness. And when you have that thing that bugs you and it's now a picture, a symbol, or a pattern, raise your hand, because it's created a picture, a symbol, or a pattern. Don't try too hard. I see a lot of scrunched foreheads. You're working too hard. Just allow your mind to show you its picture of what it is. It might be a part of your body. It might be inside of you. It might be outside of you. Someone I was working with saw something that was like that fuzzy purple guy that shows up on McDonald's commercials. So now, who has a picture, a pattern, or a symbol of the thing that bugs you? It's like my thing that bugged me was I'm not losing weight. All right, now I just give thanks that it's the Holy Spirit, the inner teacher, the inner revealer, the inner worker. There's working in, through, and as this opportunity for us to be quiet in the balcony. That's working in, through, and as us, in, through, and as us. Allowing all things to change, because all things change. Even though spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, is a constant, it's constantly moving. It's constantly reforming. It's constantly shifting. It's constantly recycling. So allow the Spirit of God to work with this symbol that you have been given, because it's just your mind saying, this is how I perceive it. It could be cute, it could be funny, it could be ugly, it could be fearful. Whatever it is, it's just your mind saying, this thing seems like this to me. Now let the Holy Spirit work with this thing and transform this thing by changing the picture of the thing that you were resisting, that you've been trying to deal with. Let that picture change into something that is now a blessing. Let the picture shift and the blessing become the blessing. And the picture will change. Let the picture change, knowing that the condition is turning into a blessing. And when the picture is changed into one that represents a blessing, something so pleasant, so intriguing, so curious, so interesting, when it is changed, raise your hand. Wonderful. Now accept the blessing that this picture represents. There will be part of your mind that says, why this, why, okay, this is too easy. Come on, it's got to be harder. This is too simple. What is she talking about anyway? This is the woo to the woo-woo to the 10th power. Let's just stop it. And then just hold the picture of the blessing. And now accept the picture, which is accepting the blessing. And so It is. Just relax. Breathe that in. And how many of you can feel that there's sense? I'm not sure you'll feel it like is in sensation, but how many of you can sense that a shift has happened internally? Is there any hands? A few hands, thank you. Then accept the shift has happened internally. And you'll notice, then I want you to pay attention this week. Notice how things have changed. What changed for me is I realized that my uncle, who I loved, I was kind of a chubby little kid, and he always says, you know, you're so pleasingly plump. And I thought to be plump was to be pleasing. So there was a pleasingly plump little child in me, making sure we stayed plump so we would be pleasing. Well, guess what? That little chubby cheeked kid turned into a very stealth, slender athlete. And I have lost 15 pounds without trying. This stuff works, you guys. Take a thing and let the thing shift by the power of the Holy Spirit, because I didn't imagine a slender athlete. It just changed into a slender athlete. The Spirit of God knows how to shift us. It knows our operating system. It knows how to operate with it. And I wanted you to have that experience because I'd love for you to now imagine that we're going to expand the garden idea. Yes, there's been a garden. We have our own garden. But I want you to imagine that the whole planet is a garden and that we have our own pea patch. We have our own little section of the earth. Whether we have a garden or not, it's not that. It's just that we have our section of the earth, but we really want to set up a cooperative system, because if we were in a city pea patch, we'd have our own section. But if one person over on the other side of the pea patch, they had the access to the water and they didn't share that water, pretty soon our pea patch dies. And if somebody else in a pea patch decides that they are going to use pesticides and they make sure that there are no bugs in their pea patch, pretty soon that's going to affect our garden, and we're not going to have bees to pollinate what we want to have pollinated. Everybody's affected by everybody. I want you to just imagine that. And then I want you to imagine that you're the person that can build a more cooperative environment for everybody to flourish. Because most of us don't imagine that. You know what we imagine? We're the victim. It's not our fault. Somebody else did it. You know, somehow what's going on, we need to tell somebody about. Instead of using the deep power of the subjective consciousness to establish within our consciousness that cooperation is the name of the game. Do you know that people have misquoted, who did it? Evolution. Darwin. Where he said it's the survival of the fittest. By the time he died, he redid that. He says it's not the survival of the fittest, it's the survival of the most cooperative. But see, how many of you look at the world and say, well, what can I do? That's a metaphor. That's a way of viewing things. Instead of viewing that what I put in the soil of my mind, just as I was talking last week, you know, that a lot of things creep up into our garden because they came under the fence and then they sprouted. We have the power to plant so deeply and so powerfully that ideas will start to crop up in other parts of the world. I want us to believe that, because if we don't believe that, we won't be doing the work. That there can be cooperation, that we are evolving into cooperation, because the whole planet is rooting for us. If all is holy now, all is sacred now, all is alive now. We are on a living planet. And just as it has taught the trees to cooperate, and that's a whole nother talk, but Google it, trees take care of each other, so too can we become part of that cooperative system and care for each other. Whew, this gets exciting. Now, one of the things I also talked about last week is that it not only do we cultivate certain seeds and bulbs and plants that we planted, we need to then care for them, nurture them, let them grow into something strong and beautiful, because those are the ones that can send the roots out. So, on my Facebook page, I shared a beautiful rhododendron. When Tim and I moved onto the property like 16 years ago, it looked like the tree from Charlie Brown. Remember the Christmas tree? Like, how pitiful can you be? You know, like it could maybe hold up 3 balls. It's like, it was like this scrawny little bushy thing. It's like, it was horrible. And Tim's like, took it on like a challenge. I will make you beautiful. I will transform you. It was Pygmalion. Anyway, so it's this little skinny thing, and he's fertilized it and dug around it and made sure that it had good soil and it had a soft ground for its roots to reach out. And then we made sure that we clipped it and took the dead stuff off and the dead branches, because it can't grow with the dead branches. I mean, he has cultivated that thing. And this spring, finally, it was pretty. Meaning some things don't happen overnight, but if you keep working at it, it will. It's gorgeous. It's wonderful. Gives me hope. That's what we should have in our life, and that's what we need to wish for all of the planet. That cooperation, that beauty, that cultivation, that this, what a lot of people fall for is, I wrote it down, is short-term gains as opposed to long-term investment in the future. I mean, I won't be around probably in 50 years. But maybe I will. I'm adding. I was never good at math.
You're only 43.
If I'm only 43, that's true. I've got lots of time. Anyway, but I still want to help create a world that people will enjoy in 50 years. So I need to plant the seeds of that possibility, cultivate that possibility, and then part of it is to take action, because I talked about that last week. You can't just throw seeds around. The seeds that will grow are the ones that you take care of, and thus Pachamama Bingo. Has everybody got one, a Pachamama Bingo? Well, these are things that you can do to help take care of the planet. Plus, I think, isn't there an Earth Action Committee meeting? Yes, today after service, yes. So you've got all of these wonderful ideas. So look very quickly, does anybody have a bingo? And if you don't have a bingo, we have one bingo. Oh, of course, again, yes. Abigail, second time, has a bingo. Oh, we have another bingo and another bingo and another bingo. Good. And guess who wins? Mother Earth. Yay. Some of these things, if you haven't got them done, you can say date completed. For instance, Reverend Jerry will have a bingo as soon as she gets a library card and starts checking things out of the library. Why? Because that's a nice way to recycle things. Anyway, play with this. Share it with your neighbors. Let's all become incredibly well educated on the small and large things we can do to make the planet more inhabitable for future generations. And I'm going to end with a song. Yeah, well, because the ending prayer. This comes from Karen Drucker. And Karen Drucker had a friend, who is also my friend, who was going through cancer treatments. And she was in the hospital for quite some time. And Karen would go into the hospital. And because she's a singer-songwriter, she would sing, "You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God." And there's more than one mystic who has said that nature is the face of God. What we see is the face of God. If you want to see God, just open your eyes and look. And you will see something that can renew itself and come back and repurpose itself, and all of that is the face of God. So think of nature. Think of the most beautiful thing that you saw today. And let's sing it. This is the face of God. I hold it in my heart. It is a part of me. It is the face of God. And if nature could sing, and it does, by the way, so many native people have said it sings. There are people, including my husband, who talk to trees. I lay down on the ground when I hurt, and I let something take away the pain. The earth is alive, and it would say to all of us, "You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God." And so it is.